Okay, so welcome to our lesson 2 in communication and globalization in our purposive communication class. Last time we discussed the communication process and the ethical considerations when we communicate with other people. Why is it important uh, to have this ethics in communicating with other people? Now, in lesson 2, we will be discussing the communication and globalization, how it affects our communication with other culture and other countries. No? So for today, uh, we will be discussing uh, the relationship or how to establish good relationship and to create better work environment to the workplace that we will be choosing someday when we are going to work, or even today when we are communicating, simply communicating with other people or other nationalities that we met along the way. Especially, we are already living in a era where people are communicating with the technology easier than before. We have this Zoom, we have this Google Meet, we have this social media around us that makes our lives easier to communicate with other people or even loved ones, no? Working abroad, our families, our brothers and sisters, our mother, parents. No? So those are the things that globalization is affecting our communication. Now, the term globalization, on the other hand, is very complex to define because, well, in different scholars or institutions, they view it differently. So nonetheless, the basic concept of globalization is the expansion of integration of cultural, political, economic, and technological domains of our uh, countries or their countries as well. Now, it reflects the world, uh, it's borderless, and the countries that are interconnected and interdependent. For example, the United States or the US, no, they have a branch similar that is open or readily available in the Philippines. Now, like McDonald's, Starbucks, those are US brands that we have already in our countries. That's the work of globalization. It connects and it has borderless connectivity or interconnected in interdependent from other countries to another country. We also have Japan, the Toyota, Honda, those are famous brands in other countries that are now readily available in the Philippines. Now, for the Philippines also, we have the locally very famous Jollibee, and now because of globalization, we have branches also in other countries. I think there are more than 100 stores already available in the US for the Jollibee and also the Bench. This is local brand, no, made from the Philippines. And now taking part of international um, market. That's because of the so-called globalization. And they have expanded over time overseas and became transnational or multinational in the same way that the other countries have developed their brands, no, or putting their brands in the Philippines. So that's why the advent of globalization associated with advancement of technologies are going together. And the systems across the region, the flow of information and communication has become smoother and faster and easier. That's the reason why we have to learn how to communicate properly with other nationalities. And that's the work of globalization. It affects the communication, our English to their English as well. So it is a good topic, no? It's a topic worthy to study. That's the reason why Ched has put a lot of effort in emphasizing that globalization is a must, no, to learn in this subject or purposive communication. Again, the goal of purposive communication is to use the communication in a sense that we have this cultural context, we have this social context. Again, if you remember our class last time, context is very important based on the people around us. Context changes when we are dealing with other people. So it depends. No? And it goes again with or it goes or blends together with globalization. Plus, when we talk about business transactions and partnership among local and international institutions, it became more efficient in their terms of their business transactions. No? So one example, the use of emails or social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We can do business with these social networking sites. So consequently, the context of globalization requires effective communication skills from the people who are using these social medias. So we have students, workers to cope up with the demands and challenges brought by this phenomenon. Well, they say we are digital natives in our era. Some people say we are already technology is innate in us, no? Especially um, with those year was born in 90s going up, no? We are easily capable of coping up with these demands and challenges brought by this advancement of technology. It's very easy for us to well to deal with it. However, the challenge here is those people who are living beyond those eras. However, I can see those a lot of people who are trying their best to cope up with these demands and challenges brought by this advancement of technology. So I think this phenomenon is very easy to cope up with, especially there are a lot of people who are trying to give tutors, to give aid, no, to those who are in need. And you can see that things, especially in social media like YouTube, simple things like you're trying to ask a question, social media or internet will going to tell you what's the answer for that. So that's how effective um, technological advancement is. Now, this includes communicating effectively with other people because with 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 the power of internet comes with effective communication. Of course, you cannot simply give instructions without this skills in communicating, no? So you have to develop this communication effectively in order to give help to other people. You cannot simply post videos to YouTube without even trying to go through with your grammar, with your English. Of course, people will try to understand, but it's different when you are easily understood by people who are watching you. So that's the reason why we have to communicate effectively with other people with different background, with different age, culture, gender, belief, orientation, and preferences, including the status. Now, according to Chen in 2005, he claims that the flux on and complexity of change will continue to increase in each year ahead and challenge fundamental assumptions and beliefs on which modern people have learned to live. Hence, people should acquire knowledge and skills that account for global communication competence. Because he said that it's only through global communication competence that can people from different culture can communicate effectively and productively in the global society. Chen means that because of this technological advancement, well, the terminologies before are changing time to time, no? So we have to cope up with that. But how can we cope up? He said that only global communication competence can do that because we can learn from other people in the different culture, like people who are advanced in technology in the US with the help of social media. So we can have, or we can get some learnings from them, no? From their tutorials in the YouTube, their their webinars, no? Their seminars online. So those are the things that made up for us, no, to well, to have this global communication competence, and also with various learnings institutions like this one. You're learning this globalization in your school. It offers a lot of venue for us to learn in different ways. You just simply have to focus on the things that you are going to learn, or for you to easily understand those things. So that's how Chen's trying to say, you know. Take note, that's some year in 2005. Of course, Chen already proved that because, of course, of the technological advancement that we have. No? We are already into 2022. Now we have this communication competence that we require to students, especially you, students who are learning in the educational institution. This communication competence are things that we need to develop based on the NCA, or National Communication Association, and these are the competence that is elaborated in linguistics as such ability to truly communicate in in a true setting, no? Or in adaptive setting where you can perform the linguistic competence. When we say linguistic competence, it's the ability to communicate with other people effectively or skillfully. No? So, well, in dynamic exchange in which linguistic competence must adapt itself to the total informational input, both linguistic and paralinguistic skills of one or more interlocutors, according to Swain in 1980, in Cannelly, 1980, they termed that as communicative competence, or what we call CC, which they define as synthesis of underlying system of knowledge and skills needed for communication. In their concept of communication, competence referred to this conscious and unconscious knowledge of individual about language and about other aspects of language use. Um, According to Noam Chomsky, we have this innate ability to understand language, and this is already readily available in our brains. And what we need to do is to further develop this innate ability for us to understand the language, because he believes that language is already in our minds. So because of that, we just simply have to develop this linguistic competence through the use of course, educational sectors, schooling. That's the reason why we have English language, we have English tutorials, we have English courses, no? Because according to Swain Canally, we have this communicative competence, or the CC, which defines as unconscious and consciously being absorbed by our brains, no? Same as the one who is who's Noam Chomsky is telling us. Now we have this communicative competence. Four of these are the things that we need to understand, and these things are very essential, no, in terms of linguistic competence that we have, no. Now the components of this CC are the grammatical competence, which means, again, according to Noam Chomsky or and Delheims, This is formally used, and we have this grammatical and lexical capacity that our brains are readily available and can automatically decode those messages. So that is called grammatical competence. If you notice, we don't have any issue with our grammar. That's the reason why we have this grammatical competence innate that we need to develop. We also have another component, which is social linguistic competence. It pertains to an understanding of the social context in which communication takes, including role relationships, the shared information of the participants, and the communicative purpose of their interaction. We also have discourse competence. This is the ability to interpret individual message elements in terms of their interconnectedness and how meaning is represented in relationship to the entire discourse. Meaning to say, you are the one who are interpreting the message or the elements in terms of their interconnectedness, and how you rebut those things, and how you have form certain feedback or a reply to a certain person. So that is discourse competence. How you are going to keep the conversation going. That's how discourse competence is. No? Strategic competence is relating to the coping strategies that communicators employs to initiate, terminate, maintain, repair, redirect, or in communication. We already learned these things in the communication skill subject. No? So if you remember, those are the things that we are coping up when we communicate with other people, so that we have a good communication or effective communication with one another. So those components of CC or communicative competence are very important, and that is present to each one of us. The moment when you are lacking one of those competence, of course, automatically you will not be developing a good or a fluent communication or an effective communication. So you have to bear in mind those components. Those are unconsciously in our brains already. However, we need to develop those things, of course, to skillfully communicate with other people. Now, the communicative competence for you as a college students is already identified, and the expected skills that you need to develop for your certain level are the following. No? So there are 10 expected skills for you as college students that you must already develop from the moment you are uh, trying to enroll in a certain degree or program. So number one, you can already state ideas clearly, no? Because you are already a college. Of course, that is understandable to the toddlers or elementary students who cannot state clearly their ideas or explain their thoughts clearly. However, in the college level, you are now have the skill now to state these ideas. So based on these 10 expected skills, I want you to rate yourself if you have those skills. Now, if you think you don't have these skills, or still, no, you need to practice more so that, of course, you can communicate with other people effectively. Number two is communicate ethically. Now, when we say ethically, you are trying to communicate consciously with other people without hurting their feelings or even their cultural beliefs. Now, communication ethics is at stake here, because you need to, number one, check the language that you're using, the jargons, and the words which it it will not hurt other people's cultural beliefs, or nationalities. No, so if you remember our class last time, ethical considerations in communication are a must, no? When we are communicating with other people. Number three, recognize when it is appropriate to communicate. So please check if you're able to acquire those skills already. And number four, identify their communication goals. Number five, select the most appropriate and effective medium for communicating. Are you using a social media? Are you using a face-to-face, confrontational, or group or peer? No. So it depends on the situation. No, what you're going to use. You're a good judge already on the things that you're going to use. Demonstrate credibility. You have to state facts as much as possible. Where did you get those opinions? Where did you get uh, those informations that you're telling me? No? So demonstrate credibility as much as possible. Identify and manage misunderstandings. This level you can already um, give advices to other people, no? Because of course you can state your ideas clearly. You have ethical considerations already acquired as a skill, no? Number nine is to be open-minded about another point of view. So you have to check yourself if you're open-minded about other people's opinion, no? And number 10 is to listen attentively. So I want you to check those things, no? The 1 to 10 skills. If you possess those things, if they are lacking, of course, you have to point out those things and manage to cope up with those things, no? Because you are already a college student. Now, the moment you graduate with college student level, it will going up. No? The NCA will give you another expected skills for a young entrepreneur, another expected skills for an adult to behave. No, so basically, those are just simply um, guidelines for us to follow. No? So dapat amo na nin ato na develop ng skill, no, for us to communicate with other people critically and effectively. That's how communicative competence work. No? There are just some of the competence or the competencies in the NCA identified as important for the graduates. While these are skilled focused, they provide a concrete way to assess your speaking competence and prepare yourself for professional speaking and listening, which are often driven. We also have this so-called global communication competence. This is already relating to individuals' ability to effectively communicate with other people in terms of cognitive, affective, and behavioral abilities. So those various components are essential because you are dealing with other people already outside your culture or your country. Let's say you're dealing with Koreans already, you're dealing with Chinese, you're dealing with Americans, no? So those things are needed. Those affective, cognitive, and behavioral abilities to conceptualize uh, language, no, in communicating with other people. Now, number one is it is the cognitive ability to understand situational environment requirements. Now, context is already going inside of this because, of course, you have to think of those things, ethical considerations. What are the things that I need to say that will not hurt their culture? And it is the motivation to demonstrate the ability to understand situational and environmental requirements. And lastly, it is the effectiveness and appropriateness for accomplishing specific goals in interaction. Why do you need to communicate with that person? Maybe you're just getting something out of it, no? Probably you're getting information, like asking questions. Now, those are specific goals of interaction in global aspect, no? So it depends on the things or your goals, no, in life, no, in accomplishing those things. Now, Chen defines communication competence as innate individual trait that is not related to personal or intellect or education. Now, Weinstein in 1969 supports that communication competence is an internal ability that is naturally enhanced and illuminated through the promotion of empathy in the process of socialization. This talks about you're not going anywhere when just simply talking to yourself. You need to socialize with other people because naturally it enhances your communication skills. You have to find partner. You have to find somebody to talk to so that it will naturally develop or enhance or illuminate the things that you are already acquired in your schooling. They say practice makes perfect. That's very true. No? So in global communication context, competence further requires individuals to be equipped with ability to acknowledge, respect, tolerate, integrate cultural differences in order to be qualified for enlight, uh, enlightened global citizenship. That's according to Chen and Starosta, 1997, 2003. Thus, Chen developed a model of global communication competence. Now, this model of global communication competence are four, and those four are the things that we need to unlock and develop in order for us to have a productive and effective communication globally, outside the country, with the various cultures that we are communicating with. Now, these are the global competence or the global communication competence model. We have the global mindset, we have the unfolding the self, we have the mapping the culture, and aligning the interaction. Now, these are the guidelines or a model for you to follow when you want to communicate globally. Number one is, according to Chen, you have to develop the global mindset. What is this global mindset? You need to understand that you are not only communicating with fellow Filipinos, but you are also inclined to communicate with other nationalities. No? So this impel to broaden perspective, not only in the Philippines, but outside the country, motivate to respect diversity, expect to reconcile conflict with other culture, propel to regulate change and orient to globalizing process because you are not limited only to communicate with your fellow Filipinos. The next one is unfolding the self. How to unfold the self is simply ceaseless purifying yourself and continuous learning. No? Practice your English speaking skills. Cultivate your sensitivity. Practice the terms that you are going to say that is not offended. Avoiding sexism, avoiding gender bias terms, no? Develop creativity and foster empathy and sympathy, as well as communicating to other nationalities. We also have mapping the culture because, again, we need to understand the culture of one another because it affects the communication process. No? So bewilderment of the differences, frustration of the differences, cognitive analysis, emphatic immersion. So you have to search for their culture, the things that they like, the things that they don't like. No? And we also have alignment or aligning the interaction. We have language ability, behavioral flexibility, interaction management, identity maintenance, and managing changes. Okay, so we will be ending here. I think there are a lot of things that already discussed today. So I want you to go to the LMS in our asynchronous time and answer the questions uh, provided. And there is a video, I think, in the link, the LMS. I want you to watch that video. I think that's only one video, so that it might give you some sort of additional in of the things that we discussed today. So if you have time, kindly open the video in the link, the LMS. So thank you everyone for listening and have a great day ahead.